Hey everybody, it's Jessica Brell, and welcome to episode number 23 of Everyday Inspiring Women. I am so excited to sit down and talk to my friend Cindy Rive. Cindy and I met not too long ago, but she's one of those people that you meet and you're like, I need to be around this person more. So we became friends on Facebook and had a couple conversations since then. And every time I talk to her, I just feel so inspired. And I know that you're going to feel this way as well after this interview. Cindy is local to me, but we do share another thing in common is we both have a cottage up in not super northern Ontario, but my idea of northern Ontario. So, Muskoka area around North Bay and Gravenhurst Barrie area for those of you who aren't local. And that's actually where I met her for the first time, was at her beautiful cottage in Huntsville. So I am going to actually pass it over to Cindy. I want, Cindy, tell us a little bit more about yourself and your story as well.
Okay, thank you. Well, it's an honor to be here. This is how we women grow and support each other, by sharing our stories and uplifting one another and encouraging one another. So I love your platform, and kudos to you really for creating this podcast, because this is part of the conscious shift that's happening on the planet, is for women and men and all of us to come together in community and support and uplift each other and share our gifts. Share those gifts from the heart. Those are our life purpose. That's our life purpose. So yes. Whatever brings us joy. What brings us joy? So, I learned later in life, 18 years ago, my journey started. The journey where I am today started 18 years ago. I was in my late 40s, and a friend of mine showed up at my door and offered to give me a crystal treatment. And I had no idea what this crystal treatment was, but I was under a lot of stress, running a construction company with my husband that we still run today, and raising 2 teenage boys. And all I knew is she said it'll help relieve stress. So I'm like, okay. And so she comes to my home, gives me this treatment. And if I had to benchmark my stress level, it was at like 10 off the charts. I laid on the couch, closed my eyes. She proceeded to do this crystal healing treatment on me, which took about 40 minutes. I got up from the couch when she was done, and I had the most profound sense of peace and calm. I had never experienced such peace and calm that I had experienced that moment from this treatment. And I really still, this biggest struggle I have is articulating the experience that I have, but it was so profound that a seed was planted that day. And I said, where have you been? And why weren't you here 20 years ago? And I need to know, what is this all about? So that day, a seed was planted in me, and that was about 2001. And I started a journey of reading books about what this, crystal healing was about, which led me to other healing modalities, Reiki and therapeutic touch. And I took courses, and I just had this driving desire to just learn as much as I could. And the more I learned, the more excited I got about the possibility of this helping so many more people, because I knew that day that when I got that experience, I knew I wasn't alone as a woman, a working woman raising kids, feeling like I'm in a pressure cooker and not knowing how to relieve it. And the other thing is not even being aware that I'm in this pressure cooker, because it just seems to be such a normal way of life. Like, we live in a lot of stress like it's normal. And when you get rid of the stress, you go, wow, this is really how life should be. But we don't know that, because, we don't know what we don't know. So I just knew this could help a lot of people. And that seed was planted. And then I thought, these people, these healers should be on every street corner, like chiropractors. And I come to learn that there were a lot of these practitioners out there, but they were doing it in their home. So again, not lending credibility to it, because they're doing it out of their home. So I had this idea was planted in me from, I believe now, the universal life force, or God, or spirit, whatever you want to call it. This idea was planted in me to create a space, a professional space, so practitioners could come and work out of a place that's professional. This would give access to them, but also access to the public at large, because most people don't want to go to some strange home and do some strange treatment, right? So it was less intimidating coming into a professional building. So yeah, my husband and I bought this building. That was like 7, 8, 9 years ago, and opened up Integrative Healing Arts Studio. And mind you, that was a big daunting thing to do. I was scared. Like, I had moments of, what the hell did we just do? We just bought this building, and now I got to create this space with, and hope that these woo-woo people show up. And if the woo-woo people do show up, I hope the community comes and shows up too and gets the treatments, you know? Yeah. But I kept, like, it was scary, but I kept saying, like, trust and surrender, because I knew, like, this driving force in me was so deep, and it was coming from my heart, not my head. And that's where I knew that it was my life purpose, clearly. And so I opened the studio, and it was successful. Mind you, it took a few years, and 5 years into the studio, another vision came to me that I felt I needed to create a space where women could come and get away for weekend escapes. So my husband found a beautiful piece of property up in Huntsville, which was ideal, perfect. My husband and the universe found it. And we sold the building, an Integrative Healing Arts Studio. I passed on to my niece, Brandy, who moved to Emeryville because we had to sell the building, so the studio had to go. Brandy took some of the practitioners and the name and opened in Emeryville, and then we renovated this property. And now my dream to have women come and have a safe place to fall, have a place to escape and to pause and to rejuvenate and to come together with other women and share and support and uplift each other. So now I have Morning Blossom Boutique Retreat. That's
it.
That's the Reader's Digest version.
I would say, you know, and it's interesting because I said we only met a couple months ago, but I guess technically I've been at your studio multiple times. Like, I had never, our paths hadn't crossed at that point, but I had been there with Heather Chauvin. I had been there with Amy Mullins, and so I had been in your studio quite a few times, and just we had not actually formally met until a few months ago. So there's so much I want to dig into here, but can we start with, this idea that, like, I love that you almost started later in life, because I think we get caught up in this thought going, well, I can't, that's something I should have been doing, in my 20s and 30s. I can't get into this whole, transition, this journey, in my 40s. Like, it's too late for me. Can you, like, that? And I find that incredibly inspiring. And because to talk to you today, to talk to you, I'd think you've been doing this your whole life. You didn't just start 18 years ago. Truly, because it's so you radiate it. So I'm curious, like, can you talk a little bit about that for me, please?
Yeah, like, I mean, like everybody else, I think, and again, I keep attributing it to this shift that's happening on the planet, this awakening, because, mostly, like I'm actually going to be 48 in October. 58 in October. Oh, 48, 58 in October. So, I'd say I started this awakening path back in my, I'm going to say early 30s. I started reading books, and that's when all the self-help books came out. So now when I look back, knowing what I know now, these self-help books came out because we started seeking about 30 years ago. And I know that we've been living as a species, as Homo, sapiens. We've been living by chance, we've been living by chance for the most part. We were born into families, and our parents only know that, go to school, get a good education, get a good job, have a family, pay off the mortgage, and live happily ever after. And that's not the case anymore. And we're now, recognizing that we're beginning to live more by choice. We're aware of the choices that we're making, that going to the same job every day is dimming our light if we're not loving that job, and it's dragging us down. And that's probably why depression and drug abuse is so prevalent, because people aren't living their truth. But we didn't know how to live our truth. Our parents didn't know how to live it. But this is part of the shift that's happening on the planet, that we're moving from our head to our heart. And I became a witness of that 20 years ago, when I was 47, when this person gave me this treatment, and this desire, this curiosity, this impulse to learn more of this, which brought me joy. As you said, when you see people living their purpose, you can see that they're alive, that they're excited, that they light up. And that purpose is our compass that's implanted in us by the universe, spirit, God, whatever you want to call it. There's a greater plan that is unfolding on this planet. And now I can look back and go, yeah, wow, this is what's happening, because I'm connected to a lot of books that I read, and a call that I'm on with Barbara Marks Hubbard, that's helped me recognize what happened and how I got to where I am today. So yeah, it's never too late to follow your heart, ever. Does that answer your question?
Oh yeah, no, it's perfect. I love it. And the other thing I wanted to pull out, like from a personal perspective, like surrender for me has been a journey, because I'm on it. Like it's very hard. I struggle with control in terms of, wanting to make sure things go a certain way. And I hear that a lot from my clients and friends, and go around, I have control issues, or, those sorts of things. So in a world that feels like we need to be controlling of what's happening in our lives, how did you really lean into surrender and trust?
Well, yeah, that was a big mantra. And mind you, like, I'm getting treatments along the way. Like, I'm getting energy healing treatments, because, the biggest thing is, I was told by a spiritual counselor that I would see. She would say, Cindy, just trust, surrender, and allow with ease and grace. When you're feeling overwhelmed, belly breathe. And so I would show up at the studio. Like, my husband and I bought this, the building we bought. It was not like a little like a couple of $1,000 building. It was a big investment. And so that was pretty scary for me. My self-talk was, first of all, I trusted enough in following my heart and what was bringing me joy, and trusting in the universe. And what my spiritual counselor told me was trust, allow, and surrender with ease and grace. So I had to really work on myself with self-talk. And I go, like, there's no way the universe would have had me make this investment if it wasn't supposed to happen. I had to. It was a self-talk thing. I mean, I would show up some days and maybe one or two people were scheduled to come through the building, so it was scary at times, but I would just have to just say to myself, just trust, allow, surrender. And that's the best answer I could give. It's deep in us to want to control things. And we have to just let, like, spirit move through us, and trust that it will happen with ease and grace, and it will unfold as it should, if it feels right, if it feels like it's coming from your heart. That's the biggest thing. It can't come from your head. It's got to come from your heart, that knowing that's hard to articulate.
I agree, because it is hard to articulate. Because you're like, you know it when you feel it, or you feel it when you know it, and it's like, but what does that feel like? And it is hard to describe at times. I couldn't agree anymore, because I'm in that. And someone's like, well, what does alignment feel like for you? And I'm like, how do I explain how it feels? I just know how it feels. And, it feels like flow, or whatever the case may be. But
that's right. And the one important key was, the funny thing is, I actually have a woman that I idolized. It's David Broad's mother, and she's like 77. And I always looked up to her. I always called her Mother Earth. She's so calm and grounded. And when the studio was opening, I'm like, oh my God, Margaret, this is really weird. You're going to think this is weird, but everything is happening so easy and so effortlessly. And I'm not used to this. I'm used to everything being a struggle, everything being hard. And she said, Cindy, that's when you know when you're in the flow, you know that you're doing your purpose. And that was a big aha for me, because I thought, how crazy is this that I feel uncomfortable because it's happening, the right building, the right tenant came in the back to help support. The name came with Margaret's the one that helped me name it. People showed up. It did. People were put in my path, so I was in the flow. So that was an adjustment to get used to, that, wow, this is happening so effortlessly. So that's, the secret.
Well, and we argue with that. We say, this can't, like you said, this can't be right. This can't be it. This is supposed to be hard. I'm supposed to be like hustling and grinding it out. I can't be just like sitting back and everything is just, you were working, you're taking action. You weren't sitting back, but you were just going, I'm taking action, but this is like almost surreal that it was working out.
The people that were put in my path, the synchronicities were, I couldn't have made them happen better than if I dreamt it myself. And same with this piece of property that the universe, the universe gave me something bigger than I could have ever dreamed of. Yeah.
Oh, I love the way that you just said that. Yes.
True. It's true. I could have never dreamed up this property. It's
gorgeous. Yeah. Oh, okay. So when you were first starting, you got you were doing some personal development books and you got your first crystal healing. And then it sounded to me like as you were going through all of this, you had a lot of some self-care practices. So in Tribe, I talk a lot about self-care. I find it's fascinating, people's perspective on it. But I'm curious, like how were you actively ensuring that you were practicing really good self-care through all of these things as well? And I'm curious if, with two sons and they were younger at the time, did you experience any guilt along the way?
Yeah. So, well, my tagline for the studio was, self-care is a necessity, not an indulgence. That was my tagline for the studio. And so I did walk the talk, and I would get energy healing treatments, because absolutely, running a construction company with my husband, 2 teenage boys, that challenged me, let me tell you. And then also caring for my mom, because I was like the main sole caregiver for my mom. And so I would get Reiki treatments. I would get reflexology treatments. I go see a spiritual counselor, Catherine Marshall, who does SRT. I would do yoga. I did meditation. I took little trips. I took girls' getaways. Like I did. And I did take time for self-care for myself. And there was, the guilt because of my age. I the beautiful thing is, as you get older, you do get more wisdom, and you learn that all that stress and worry was for nothing, So I didn't have as much guilt, I guess, that, when I kind of went on this journey, but I really did focus on the self-care, and I still do. Like I just got a reflexology Reiki treatment yesterday from Sandra at, what is her place called? Reflex, I forget. Anyway, Sandra, she's going to be moving to Brandy's studio in September. So Soul Reflections from Sandra. So yeah, I still see Catherine Marshall. So, we were always a work in progress, but it does get better with age, I must say. Yeah.
I agree. I'm going to be 40 this year, but I'm like, I don't think I would want to be in my 20s, like maybe my late 30s right now, but I'm not that far from it. But 30 again, I'm good. Yeah. So the retreat center that you've created at your cottage, can you tell me about how that's been growing for you over this like the themes that are coming up around the cottage or retreats for you this year?
Okay. Yeah. So the whole focus, what I'm offering at the retreats is for people to design their own retreat getaway. So I teamed up with a group called More Than Just Art. It's a holistic place similar to what the studio was here, and they have practitioners that rent space. And so I've partnered with them. So when people go to my website, there's a base rate of a flat rate of 125 per night per person, and that includes breakfast. And then they can do an a la carte. And the a la carte is, do you want to have an art workshop? Do you want to have a women's circle where Andrea Beatty facilitates women's circles? She also does causal alignment treatments. We have this guy named Barry who does drumming circles, and this guy's got over 300 drum and percussions and all kinds of stuff that he brings to the studio. We've done 2 of those, and they are a lot of fun. And then I have RMTs that will come to the studio, to the retreat. I have, reflexologists that will come. So people can do an a la carte and add to their retreat, or they can just use it as a place to escape and get away and use the amenities, which we have, canoes, kayaks. There's a sauna there. There's the games room. But right now, a lot of the people that are renting it are people like you who have a following and they want to bring their tribe, and then you do what you want to do, and if you want to bring in Andrea, or if you want to bring in the drummer, you do that, and then I'm hooking up with some people that do catering for cooking, because I do not cook. I can only do breakfast. And so it's unfolding beautifully, really it is, and I like that it's small and intimate enough, so people are comfortable with sharing, women are comfortable with sharing, and it's just really a sacred place.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And that was definitely how I felt when I was there. It was unlike any cottage I had ever seen in like a holistic way, and everything that I love. Like you have crystals hanging, and you have beautiful self-development books, and your bunkie that feels like it's overlooking the lake. And there's nothing, this is going to be off on a tangent, but not really. There's nothing like being in nature too. Am I right?
So healing, so healing. I mean, we are nature, we're all alive and breathing, everything, trees, water, the birds, everything. I mean, we're all so interconnected. And when we live in our homes and go to work every day in these buildings and this electricity and this structure, it's taking us away from our natural environment. And that's why we're not at ease when we're at work and in our homes as much as we are at ease when we're in nature, which is our natural surrounding. And more we're recognizing that, and people are really wanting to get back to nature and living in yurts. And there's all kinds of stuff going around on the internet about people living in yurts, and they're taking New York City people because they're so conditioned to live that life, they don't know any different. So when they're put back in the natural environment, they're so blown away by how at peace they feel. And it's just, it's such a necessity. But we need our modern world now too, so we can merge the two. And that's the beautiful thing, that we can merge the two.
So that you and I can have this video chat and we can talk about getting into nature.
Yes. Technology is fascinating when it's used for the greater good. And that's where we're finding that balance, is using all this technology for the greater good.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a friend who's building a yurt, and it's like a reconnection almost, right? So interesting. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So
there's nothing wrong with wanting to have some more.
Right. Yeah.
We
agreed.
Mm-hmm.
Creature comforts. Yes. Totally. I have I love community. It's definitely something I put a focus on. It was something I personally was craving in my life quite a few years ago, and didn't even kind of realize that it was actually a community that I was craving. I just knew something was missing. And I started doing things and realizing, I was craving bringing other women into my experience, and so that I could learn and we could connect and support each other. So I'm curious to get your perspective on what does community mean to you, and then what things do you do? I know you have a really great group of friends. And so how do you cultivate that, I guess? This felt like it was a long drawn out question. What does community mean to you? How do you cultivate it?
No, and I understand. And the interesting thing too, really, Jessica, when you think of it, when you go back to, 200-300 years, people lived in tribes.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the way we lived. That is natural. And then fast forward to our modern world today, there's been a huge disconnect and a huge breakdown. I mean, families are, breaking down and even yeah, families have been breaking down slowly. We don't know our grandparents. We don't know our aunts and our great aunts and our great uncles and our great grandparents, and the stories aren't being told because we're so caught up in this fast paced life. And so there's been this huge disconnect. And there you go with the awakening. You knew something was missing, something deep in your DNA. It's in all our DNA. It comes from the beginning of time. So the beautiful thing about you listening to that calling, that deep inner calling, that impulse that was put in you, that nudged you to create this community. We need it as human beings, and that's the beautiful thing about the technology. Like, we don't want to go back to 200-300 years ago. So we're finding that balance, and we know that it's important as human beings that we come together in community. And I just heard the other day that community equals unity. And community for me is like my girls, when we opened up the studio, that's when I started finding, I would say to my husband, I come home and I go, I finally found my peeps. Because, you go through life and you have friends. And often these are friends of convenience because, through marriage or whatever, you become friends. But you grow and evolve, and sometimes those friends don't evolve with you, and you're not on the same page. And then you feel like you're the, odd one out. And for years I did feel like that because everybody thought I was woo, woo, woo and airy fairy. And now I look back and I can see that why they thought that way. But now I know to be true to myself, that's who I was, and this is where it was going to take me to find my peeps. So I would always say I finally found all my peeps. So community is about coming together and uplifting one another and really hearing each other and listening and guiding and helping and bouncing ideas off. And then like I see it right here in Essex County. Like, look at all the great women that started businesses. Charmaine from Ocean Bottom Soap, Carrots and Dates, Neviana, Tatiana, all the women that have come, that are rising up in our community, that are becoming businesswomen. And we're excited for them. So we start sharing and we start networking and we start promoting each other. That's can make me cry right now because that is so beautiful. That's what we are as human beings. We want to help each other. We want to lift each other up. And it's sad because, well, it's not sad. It's just part of our evolution. But, it's the male. We've been dominated by the male energy for so long, and it's all been about suppression and, win, lose. And no, if somebody's winning and somebody's losing, that's not good. And so females with all these pound movements and even like the social movements, like even like, like the Martin Luther King movements and all those beautiful movements, it's about us rising up and listening to our heart and knowing that, we've been controlled so much by government and corporate greed, and our parents were taught to buy into that we trusted the governments and we trusted the corporations to put good food on the grocery shelves and feed us. But meanwhile, half the shit is poison. And so the veil is coming down. And so that's why I just love this call that I'm on with Barbara Marx Hubbard, because it's validating that we're awakening and the female energy is rising, not to overcome the male energy, but to rise up and meet it so that we have harmony and co-creativity and we help one another and we like recognize the gifts in each other and we support those gifts. And that's how we will have harmony on the planet. And that's how we'll have peace on earth. I mean, there's a whole another program that's out there called Creating Heaven on Earth, and it's going to be a reality. And that's part of the fifth dimension and the age of Aquarius. And so it is happening, and it sounds corny to some people, but those of us that are seeing glimpses of it can begin to see that this is a real possibility. And yeah, so I could just go on and on and on.
And I could sit here and listen to it. I could just, yes, keep going.
Yeah. So it's all good.
And I love that. And to your point about the patriarchy, and it's this idea that women have to compete with each other and competition, and instead we can collaborate, we can come together, and not viewing other people doing the same work as you as competition, and instead how can we support each other, because it's the coming together that brings that awareness, and the more people that are aware, there's more than enough to go around.
Absolutely. Yes.
Thank you for sharing that. I love, I call them a soapbox moment, but it's because I could feel that from you, and I loved every second of it. It like the passion that was coming out of you, emotionally, but just the way you speak about it, it's clear that you're doing the work, but you're passionate about it as well. And there's something to be said when someone is speaking so passionately, and you just immediately connect with them. And it excited me, because it's it's not something I think about as much as you do, but I'm I love the way that you articulate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That was awesome. So what else is coming up for you over the next couple, I call them a theme. I noticed, you were saying, when you were building, when you're going through the process of growing your business, and you're talking about trust and surrender, that's themes. Those are themes. For me right now, my theme is a huge surrender right now. But do you notice that in your experience? And if you do, what themes are coming up for you?
Yeah, well, right now, the theme that keeps coming up for me, and every day it gets stronger and stronger, and it is a part of, because of this other movement that I'm in with Barbara Marx Hubbard. But the theme is the conscious shift that's happening, this awakening that's happening on the planet. And and the other thing is, when I surrender, and I tell you that people are put in your path. And back in November, and I really don't know how this happened, but I signed up for this 52-week intensive with Barbara Marx Hubbard. So it's every Tuesday night I'm on this call. And for those of you who don't know Barbara Marx Hubbard, which, I read her book a few years ago called From Ego to Essence, Moving from Ego to Essence. And then there was a partnering book that went with that called The 52 Codes of Self-Evolution. So I read that about 10 years ago and completely forgot about it, but loved anything that, having to do with moving from the head to the heart. And I got an email to see about this course, this 52-week course. And when I signed up for this course, I'm like, 52 weeks of I remember I had that book. I remember that book. What did I do with that book? I probably loaned it to somebody or gave it away. So Barbara's book, or this whole course, which I'm so excited to be a part of, and is about this whole awakening on the planet, and this impulse, this universal life force that is, we are the universe expressing itself. We really, really are. And the universe does have a divine plan. And now that I'm aware of it, and the more I'm aware of it, the more I'm witnessing it, and I'm trusting in it. So I'm actually going to be going to Colorado in November. So there's 480 of us that are on this Zoom call every Tuesday night. And she has people on, she had Bruce Lipton come on. She's had Lynn McTaggart come on. She has all these great thinkers, these scientists, these biologists, validating this new species that we are becoming. And this new species is Homo amore universalis. Amore meaning love. So and Barbara's a visionary. She's 88 years old. She awakened to this 50 years ago in 1945 when they dropped the bomb on Hiroshima. And she wanted to know, what is the greater good of this power that we have? And that, at the age of 16, set her on a course to understand, this power. What is the greater good? And we don't want it to destroy us. What is the greater good of it? And back in the 80s, she had these 52 codes downloaded to her. So this call, each week we go through each of these codes, one code a week. So I'm just going to read this. We're gathering in November for 4 days. So there's 480 of us. I don't know that all 480 are going to, because some of the people are from Australia, New Zealand, Spain, the UK, and we're basically a collective group of pioneering souls participating in this online course, learning to raise the frequency on the planet toward the tipping point of our evolution. And Barbara, she's spearheading this. And actually, they just did a documentary on her. It's called An American Visionary. It just came out in August. So anybody that wants to watch it, just Google Barbara Marks Hubbard, and you can buy it. It's only $9.99, or you can rent it for $4.99. But it's a fabulous story about her journey. And Barbara sees us moving from Homo sapiens sapiens to Homo amore universalis. So, and that's basically when I said we're moving from living by chance to living by choice. So we're acting more from our heart's desire, which brings out our life purpose, which brings out more creativity, joy, and the love of others and supporting others. So this coming November at the Sunrise Ranch, the ultimate goal of this event, when we come together, is to, let me just read this. The conscious move is, okay, here we go. So the ultimate goal of this event is to make the efforts of the shift in consciousness, this conscious movement, more visible, to engender greater coherence in our world, and to continue to promote this awakening of the spiritual, social, and scientific potential of humanity in harmony with nature for the highest good of all life. So if you check out the Foundation for Conscious Evolution, you'll learn more about why this foundation came about and what its goal is, which is basically to connect and align individuals and groups, making visible the vast movement for positive change that is arising everywhere. Because the news is not sharing this. The news wants to share what's breaking down. It doesn't want to share what's breaking through. And we need to balance the news with what's breaking down, because we need to know what's breaking down, but we also need to know what's happening, what's improving. And there's so much more that's going on that's good on the planet. Like there's so much more. Like even just today on Facebook, there's I don't know, like an organization that's getting plastic out of the ocean, and they're building floating things. And, so we are slowly cleaning up our oceans. We are moving to solar energy. So there's so much that, the crisis that's happening on the planet is the driver for the solutions that are happening. But those aren't making the nightly news. They just want to bore us and put us to sleep with all the negativity. So thank God for social media, and we promote all the positive and what's working in this world, because so much more is working than what's not working. But they want to keep you in fear.
Yeah.
The government, the corporations. But we are waking up.
Yeah,
the veil is pulled down. Yeah.
Agreed. And I hear from people who are like, oh, I don't like social media, it's negative. And I'm like, then you need to follow different people, because
right.
I am inspired by my social media, and I get to choose who and what I want to be a part of. And I think that it's a matter of choice. And I think you don't have to subscribe to what you don't want to see. It's kind of nice that way.
And honestly, like Barbara loves this new technology when it's used for the greater good. She said, like the internet is like our nervous system. The internet is our nervous system. And I mean, I'm every Thursday night, I'm talking face to face like we are right now with 2 people from Australia, with 3 people from New Zealand, the other one's from British Columbia. We're all coming together, and we're all part of this collective movement, and we're raising the vibration on the planet, as with all the other great organizations and movements that are going on. We're being connected worldwide with a handheld device. So this technology is definitely fantastic when used for the greater good.
Yeah.
And it is being used for the greater good. Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. Oh my God, I love that so much. So I was going to ask you what your, favorite book of yours is. Am I?
Yes.
Yes. Do you,
Yeah, and
you have just one?
it's
Can you limit it?
no, that's the problem. No, honestly, like I've devoured books all my life. And when I hit 30, actually, yeah, about 32 was when I really started reading. I literally devoured, and there are so many books. But believe it or not, the one book that I can always say will always be at the top of my list, always, is the book called Tuesdays with Maury.
Yes.
It's a simple book about life. It's a man who's dying. He was a professor, but the wisdom in this book is timeless. It touches your heart. It's basic. And I actually got to meet Mitch Albom, who wrote the book. So isn't that amazing? Mm-hmm. I was at an airport coming back from Las Vegas to Detroit, and he was sitting there. And I said to my husband, oh my God, that's Mitch Albom. I have to go talk to Mitch. So I sat down and said, hey, Mitch, and said, I loved your book and that. But yeah, it's just a really simple book. But yeah, you know how many books I have and how many books I read. And I read books on self-development, spirituality, anything that's positive and uplifting. And there are so many of those out there. So many, too many to mention. But my favorite quote,
yes,
is Margaret Mead. Where is it? Margaret Mead's quote. Where did I put it? I have it here. Everybody must know that quote. I use it all the time. Okay, I did have it in my notes, but it's basically. Doesn't anybody know Margaret Mead's quote? What is it? About how. Where is that quote? I have to find it. I probably even have it on my phone. Anyway, my favorite quote is by Margaret Mead. Never doubt that a small group of like-minded people with the same goal can change the world. Indeed, that's all that ever has. Mm. Something like that. Do you know that quote?
I feel like you posted it not long ago, and I read it, and I was like, yes, it's so true. I've definitely heard it.
I post it a lot. I do post it a lot. Yes. So that's my favorite quote.
It's awesome. I'll post that one in there. And so how can people, I'll post all of your contact information in the notes for the show notes, but how can people get either in touch? Did you find it?
I'm going to, because it's going to drive me nuts. Go ahead, talk to me. Margaret Mead quotes. Okay. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. And that's the truth.
Isn't it?
And that was, how long ago did she say that? A long time ago. Yeah.
That's awesome.
One community at a time. One community at a time.
Yes, totally. I'm going to say, so, to get in touch with you. So what is the best way, and I'll post this in the show notes, but what is the best way for people to get in touch with you, to know more about what you're doing, and also if they're interested in booking a retreat with you?
Well, the website to Morning Blossom Boutique Retreat is morningblossomBR.com.
Okay, perfect. I'll post that.
And my email is cindy.rive@gmail.com.
Perfect. I'll post that as well. Okay. Awesome. Thank you, Cindy, so much for sitting down and chatting with me today. I appreciate your time, and I could sit and listen to you talk or chat with you for hours. I'm excited to do our second annual Tribe Retreat at Morning Blossom Boutique Retreats in the end of October. It's going to be incredible. I can't wait. Thank you very much. Okay, that was the universe.
It's always an honor to share and to let's all shine our light, continue to shine our light, breathe the light, be the light, shine your light.
So good. Mm-hmm. Thanks, Cindy. We'll chat soon.
Bye. Bye.